During this pandemic, we are witnessing the use of semantics to channel the way we think. We must be aware of this problem and not only discipline ourselves against it, but point them out to others as well. Now, we're going to give you examples of this problem towards the end of this video as they relate to this pandemic. Semantics as a weapon is very important for us to understand. The use of language against the people is a long-standing tactic and usually happens without the targeted audience noticing how they're being channeled to change how they think. We recently pointed out that understanding the spirit of the Bill of Rights is necessary. Not understanding the Bill of Rights is not a simple lack of a good education. It also involves how we've been channeled to think. It all began with something called the Social Circle in revolutionary France. This organization was led by an important member of the Illuminati, Nicolas Bonneville. They used the tactic of changing the definition of words already in use and invented others in order to move the masses towards the goals they had in mind during the revolution. They even developed a dictionary for this purpose. All of the modern isms came out of this organization: Marxism, Nazism, communism, socialism, etc. Now let me give you a modern example of changing the meaning of a word over time in order to change the thinking or understanding of a word. That word is inflation. Now, inflation is actually the issuance of paper money unredeemable in gold or silver. Now, here are a couple of the first two in the mid-30s. The first one, these are student dictionaries, by the way, for students. It's the increase in the amount of paper money in circulation without any addition to the gold or silver reserve, thus causing a rise in prices. Now keep in mind, this is a school dictionary. The same year, a different school dictionary says this about inflation: the increase of the currency of a country by issuing too much paper money. So you see, already they're obfuscating the idea that gold or silver is connected with inflation. Now here's one from the 1950s. A substantial rise of prices caused by an undue expansion in paper money or bank credit. Again, they don't talk anything about gold or silver, which is actually the constitutional money, by the way. The Constitution talks about gold and silver, not paper. Here's a more recent dictionary: an increase in the volume of money and credit relative to available goods, resulting in a substantial and continuing rise in the general price level. So over time, they've actually changed the definition of inflation in the minds of the people so they don't understand what the government is doing to them. Because it's government that does this. Government causes inflation. Now, the other thing is that over time, the Senate and the House of Representatives have issued reports relative to the use of semantics and the interjection of words into our language. Now, we don't have these reports anymore because they abolished the committees in the Senate and the House of Representatives that talk about internal communism. For instance, here's the first one, wordmanship. Semantics as a communist weapon. In other words, how they use semantics to change the thinking of the population. Here's another one, communist psychological warfare or brainwashing. How they actually will get people, it's just a different attack on the same idea of getting people used to using different terms, different words, and the definition of these words so they can channel how people act and think politically especially. Here's one that was very important called The New Drive Against the Anti-Communist Program. And it showed the tactics of interjecting a new word into the language of the American people. What happened was in the World Communist Party sent out an edict that they were to wipe out the anti-communist program in the United States. And this documents how they were to do that. And what they wanted to do was to smear this new organization on the scene called the John Birch Society. They were to smear that organization so bad that if anybody heard about them, they would be revulsed and have a negative idea of what the John Birch Society was. And they were going to inject a new word into the American language to facilitate this tactic. And it was going to be Birchite or Bircher. so that anybody, based on this long-term smear, would hear the word Bircher or Birchite connected to anybody, they would reject that individual and anything that they said, whether they were running for office, giving a speech, writing a book, on TV, whatever it was. And so this documented how they were going to do that, the use of a new word in the language to turn people off. Now we come to the terms they've invented to channel our thoughts during this time period, this pandemic, and beyond. If they can get us to think in their terms, we will lose. For instance, one of the new terms they use is the new norm. Well, if it's new, it's not normal, is it? But it's their way of getting us used to transitioning from what we were to what we're going to be under these new edicts that they have formulated. Another one is mitigation. They use that word instead of government control. But when they use the word mitigation, that's really what it means. But it's a nice way of saying it. It's a way that takes away the sharpness of the control from the federal government. Mitigation. Another one is social distancing. In other words, we can't get any closer than 6 feet and that sort of thing. You may have heard about the couple that were fined in the city of New York walking in the city park, and they were walking together. They were given a fine by a policeman because they were not maintaining social distancing. They share the same bed at home, my goodness sakes. What's wrong with them holding hands walking down the sidewalk, their husband and wife? But social distancing has become a situation that will carry over in later years because we're used to pushing people aside. We don't want to get too close. The government does not like people getting too close. So they get too close, they organize. And often they organize against the government. Another one is we need to come together. How can we come together if we're not supposed to get more than 6 feet, with one another? Even these press conferences now held every day at the White House, they've got only a scattering of reporters because they don't want them sitting too close together. But they use the term we need to come together, which is really their way of saying we want everybody to obey the edicts that are coming down from the governors and the federal government. Now, we cannot allow ourselves to be brainwashed by the use of these terms. To think that government controls in the name of a pandemic is okay. We also need to inform others of this problem so the lasting effects of these controls will be shortened. Next week, we will give you helpful hints in how to organize your efforts for better results as you go about creating understanding in the minds and hearts of those who you are going to work with.